Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something truly massive in scope. We are going to explore the ultimate architectural blueprint for our modern world, human history before the year 1200 CE. When we look around today at our cities, our laws, our trade routes, and our belief systems, it can kind of feel like all of this was just spontaneously generated in the modern era. But the reality, the structural foundations of the way we live right now were actually laid down thousands of years ago. So today, we're going to trace those ancient blueprints and see exactly how our world was constructed. Okay, let's dive into this. To make sense of all this dense history, we're going to structure it into 5 easily digestible building blocks: foundations of ancient civilizations, technology and global trade, philosophies and world religions, power, society, and governance, and finally, the legacy of antiquity. Section 1. Foundations of Ancient Civilizations, laying the groundwork for human society. To build a civilization, humanity first had to fundamentally change its relationship with the Earth itself. And that brings us to the ultimate catalyst for literally everything that follows in this explainer: the Neolithic Revolution. This was that critical transition from roaming hunter-gatherer societies to settled agricultural communities, all happening through the domestication of plants and animals. Think about it. Without agriculture generating a reliable food surplus, complex societies simply doesn't happen. When people don't have to spend every waking second foraging for their next meal, they can actually stay in one place, populations can grow, and people can start specializing in totally different skills. And once humanity settled down, wow, we saw the rapid rise of major civilizations, the early heavy hitters of world history. In the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia emerged, giving us massive stepped temples called ziggurats and cuneiform, which is one of the earliest writing systems. Over in North Africa, ancient Egypt unified under powerful divine pharaohs and constructed enduring monuments like the pyramids. Over in present-day Pakistan and India, the Indus Valley civilization was thriving with mind-blowing urban planning. We're talking grid-like streets and highly sophisticated drainage systems long before modern plumbing was a thing. And ancient China saw the rise of massive dynasties like the Shang and Qin, who centralized power and kicked off monumental projects like the Great Wall. This geographic settling is what allowed humanity to construct the foundational walls of what we now call civilization. Section 2. Technology and Global Trade, the hardware and networks of the ancient world. So, once societies were established, humans began innovating at an incredible pace. It's really easy to take these massive technological leaps for granted today, but these ancient inventions are the literal hardware our modern lives still run on. The invention of the wheel completely revolutionized transportation. Advancements in metallurgy allowed civilizations to shift from bronze to iron, which gave those who mastered it massive military and agricultural advantages. Innovations like irrigation and plows sent food production and population growth absolutely skyrocketing. Meanwhile, writing systems, from hieroglyphs to alphabets, allowed for complex record-keeping and communication across generations. And the invention of the compass and better shipbuilding, that suddenly opened up the entire world's oceans. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when those new technologies are put to use. We start connecting the globe. We see the establishment of the famous Silk Roads linking East Asia all the way to Europe with commodities like silk and spices. We've got the Indian Ocean trade networks where merchants learned to harness seasonal monsoon winds to cross vast waters. There were the grueling trans-Saharan routes across West Africa, trading salt and gold, and intricate Mesoamerican networks exchanging obsidian and precious cacao. These early trade routes weren't just moving goods around either, they were acting as the very first global internet for sharing ideas, technologies, and culture. Section 3. Philosophies and World Religions, the soul of the ancient structure. If technology was the physical hardware of human society, we're now transitioning to the software. Because across the ancient world, humanity grappled with the divine in distinctly different ways. On one hand, we had polytheistic traditions in places like Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome. These societies worshipped multiple gods and goddesses, often building monumental structures, like those ziggurats and pyramids, as grand stages for their rituals. But on the other hand, we saw the emergence of monotheistic traditions, the belief in a single, all-powerful God. This foundation was established primarily through the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and later Islam, which all trace their origins back to the patriarch Abraham. At the same time, a rich tapestry of diverse systems developed across ancient India, China, and Persia, and these provided incredible societal structure and inner peace. Hinduism developed in India, with its foundation in the ancient Sanskrit texts known as the Vedas. Also from India came Buddhism, originating with the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama and centered on the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Over in ancient China, Confucianism and Taoism emerged, offering powerful ethical frameworks that focused on social harmony, filial piety, and a deep, deep balance with nature. And in Persia, we saw Zoroastrianism, which is actually one of the world's oldest continuously practiced religions. Now, what's really interesting about this is how ancient thought directly mirrors modern education. In classical Greece, figures like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle were exploring ethics and logic. The Socratic method isn't just about giving someone the answer. It's a philosophical approach that involves continuously asking questions to stimulate critical thinking and draw out those underlying ideas. It is incredible to realize that the very way we pursue logic and critical thought in a modern university classroom today, that is a direct descendant of ancient Greek philosophy. Section 4. Power, Society, and Governance, Structuring Human Life and Authority. So as populations exploded, humanity had to invent massive systems to manage resources and control millions of people. And different regions experimented with political governance in some really fascinating ways. First, you had city-states, independent entities centered around a single city. A great example is Greece, where Athens experimented with direct democracy while Sparta utilized an oligarchy. Then you had centralized empires. Think Rome, Han China, or the Persian Empire, uniting vast, incredibly diverse territories under a single ruler or dynasty with super efficient administration. And of course, there were monarchies, where absolute power was wielded by divine kings or queens. That's perfectly exemplified by the Egyptian pharaohs. But here is the crucial point. While these empires grew and accomplished all these architectural and cultural marvels, the social realities for the average person were often incredibly harsh. Ancient societies were overwhelmingly patriarchal, limiting women largely to domestic spheres. Social organization was deeply stratified through complex caste systems in India and strict hierarchies in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Slavery was tragically widespread. For instance, Sparta relied heavily on subjugated laborers called helots, and Rome extensively used slave labor. And to maintain all this order, civilizations created codified laws, like Hammurabi's Code. Now, this was groundbreaking for being written down, but it dictated strict punishments that varied depending entirely on your social status. Your rights were highly limited by birth, gender, and class. Let's move to the timeline and see how this all builds across a sweeping scale. History is really the dramatic rise, clash, and fall of civilizations. We start with the Neolithic Revolution, the birth of farming. Then, by around 1200 BCE, we hit the mysterious Bronze Age collapse, where major Mediterranean civilizations suddenly fell due to climate, invasion, and trade disruption. Fast forward to the 400s BCE, and we see the massive Persian and Peloponnesian Wars shaping the destiny of Greece. From 264 to 146 BCE, Rome and Carthage fight the monumental Punic Wars for dominance of the Mediterranean. And over in Asia, in 221 BCE, Qin Shi Huang achieves the monumental unification of China. Speaking of the Punic Wars, during the Second Punic War, the Carthaginian general Hannibal achieved the seemingly impossible. He crossed the freezing, treacherous Alps to attack Rome, and he brought an army of war elephants with him. I mean, the sheer logistical audacity of ancient warfare is just staggering. Moving massive armies and exotic animals across continents without any modern technology, that is what keeps this history so vividly alive. Section 5. The Legacy of Antiquity. How the Ancient World Built the Modern Present. So, we've covered thousands of years of history, but how does this tie directly back to your everyday life right now? Well, we are truly living inside the enduring architectural blueprint drawn up by these ancient peoples. The alphabets we use to text our friends derived from Phoenician, Greek, and Latin scripts. Our modern ethics, thought, and literature are completely guided by Greek philosophy and ancient religious traditions. When we vote or go to court, we are participating in civic systems modeled directly on Athenian democracy and Roman civil law. The very buildings we work and live in utilize the engineering of Roman arches and domes. In today's massive globalized economy, that is simply the modern evolution of the trade exchange that was first established on the ancient Silk Roads and monsoon-swept ocean routes. It really all connects. Our laws, our math, our literature, and our philosophies were forged in the fires of civilization well before the year 1200 CE. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. If the ancient world meticulously built our present, what foundations are we building today for the humans living 3,000 years from now? You see, history isn't just a static thing of the past, it's an ongoing construction project, and we are laying the next row of bricks right now. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and keep exploring.